My wife and I just bought a brand new house, and we got to do quite a bit of remodeling on the house. There's all kinds of different things, and one of the oldest things in this house that we got to replace is the dishwasher. It looks like this is a rather old dishwasher. I opened it up, and come to find out, I think it has like a Ross Pro 92 sticker, and it must have been a big fan like I was, but I think it's time to upgrade. And the reason I think that we got to upgrade this is because I talked to my wife, and I told her what I think we should do for the dishwasher and who the dishwasher in the house should be. She wasn't very happy with that idea. So now it's time for us to talk about what kind of dishwasher you should buy that's available on the market, whether you're in the US or somewhere else. Generally, the models I think are kind of similar between most places in the world at the current time. So what's the most important thing when it comes to buying a dishwasher? There's one thing that ends up being more important than anything else, and all we got to do is open up the door and look inside. More importantly, even than the name brand of whatever dishwasher you buy, the material that the tub is made out of is what really matters more than that brand. The key is you want to invest in metal, not plastic. If you invest in metal, you're going to find that the quality and satisfaction among pretty much any brand is higher on that metal tub than a plastic tub. But what other advantages are you going to have with that metal tub? Not only is metal a better form of music, it's actually a much more superior way to absorb the sound of the cleaning action on your washing machine. Plastic tubs at best do about 54 decibels among most brands, but if you invest in a metal dishwasher, that decibel level goes from a best 52 to 54 down to even a 36 or a 38, which is a huge selling point of modern dishwashers. Another aspect of dishwashers that are metal is the fact that they will clean your pots and pans and dishes a whole lot better than they would if they're plastic. The reason for that is the element that is in the tub of the dishwasher gets really, really hot in most brands and manufacturers to dry your dishes. And the reality is that when you have a dishwashing machine that has a plastic tub, it just simply will not get as hot. And of course, the reason for this is that plastic simply can't get nearly as hot as metal can, meaning that it just won't run that same temperature and ends up affecting all kinds of things: the quality of the wash, the quality of the dry, the quality and speed, of course, of the operation of the entire machine. And that's why consumers have a tendency, far more often than not, to pick metal over plastic. And one time I think I told my dishwasher that she was hot, and that's probably why I have 3 kids that look exactly like me. Another advantage that there is on a metal dishwasher on the material it's less porous on the material composition. And the result of this means that your dishwasher is less likely to be smelly and nasty on the inside versus a plastic one. And that's not saying plastic's bad in every single way, but again, you're going to end up noticing far less odors on a metal dishwasher than you will a plastic tubbed unit. And because that metal dishwasher, again, can get much hotter in the drying cycles than the plastic tub does, one other advantage is the fact that you're generally going to have a whole lot more operation cycles and features on your control system. And again, this doesn't matter from brand to brand. You're simply going to get far more options, and the unit just simply will be far more complete with that metal tub as opposed to a plastic tub. But why does this dishwasher have so much really good metal in it? Well, I think the reason here is that this machine wants me to think that it's a metal tub instead of a plastic. Nice try. You are definitely plastic, and I'm definitely going to replace you. But are there any advantages whatsoever to having a full plastic tub? Well, yes, there are, but there's only a few advantages to having something like this. The first one is cost. The reality is that a plastic tubbed dishwasher is going to be much more affordable. Plastic tub dishwashers typically are between the $300 and $500 range. You don't find metal tubs, generally less than $500 anymore, on the market. So if you have only a certain amount of money to use, I suggest paper plates. But if you need something that's automatic, well, you're going to get a plastic one. Another advantage of plastic is it's not going to stain. Again, this unit is very old. This is from the early to mid 90s. As far as I can tell, it was in quite a bit of use, and it still looks really good on the inside. So durability-wise, at least on the tub itself, you have no worries or concerns about that plastic unit. Another advantage of a plastic tub is going to be that you're not going to see nearly as many harsh water stains on a plastic tub unit. Another advantage is if something happens to where part of the tub gets scratched or nicked, it's not going to simply rust. So there is almost a durability advantage to the tub itself with plastic. But again, that's probably the only major advantage here. Don't spray me again. But still, overall, I think I want that metal tub. Oh, good. It didn't spray me again. So what brands should you look at buying for your dishwasher if it comes down to makes and models? Well, there are going to be differences between manufacturers and specific models, so let's go over them. Here's the truth about the different brands. It doesn't actually matter as much as the brand as it does the price. It comes out after researching hundreds of thousands of reviews on different dishwashers. The brand plays less of a part than the price of the dishwasher. The more you spend on the dishwasher, the average satisfaction jumps up. When you buy something under $500, as you see in the chart here, it's not nearly as satisfactory as something higher end. And this tends to be the case over every make and every model. Even Samsung dishwashers are better at a higher price than a lower end Samsung, but of course, you don't want Samsung regardless. But when it comes to GE or Frigidaire or Whirlpool or Bosch or any other company, whether it's in the US or Europe or worldwide, the more you spend, the more you end up liking your dishwasher. So this is one appliance in the house that I would say you do want to spend more money on. So what are the best dishwashers on the market that won't get angry at you when you leave the toilet seat down? One of the biggest recommendations in the US is KitchenAid. The KDTM4 series and the KPTM6 series. The differences in these styles is how the handle is mounted and the control boards, how they operate, whether they're integrated or whether you have to pull out on the door to activate them. They feature 3 wash and dry racks, and there are some styles that are a little bit cheaper that only have 2 racks, such as the KDFE2 that has 2 racks, but runs a little bit quieter. And if you can't remember the models that I'm talking about on screen, just check the description and the pinned comments. I'm going to have a link to all the different models that are on the market that I would suggest, because it may actually change in the future as manufacturers come out with different makes and models that may change the naming just a little bit. Next, another really good, maybe even better recommendation is anything from Bosch, but especially the 800 series units. Bosch has always been regarded as one of, if not the gold standard of dishwashers worldwide, and consumers still really, really like it. But the key is, the more you pay, the more you get on features and also satisfaction. So again, the 800 series, you're going to spend a lot of money on most of the 800 series, but they are fantastic machines. And that's definitely what I'm leaning towards to replace this apple bottom dishwasher. KitchenAids tend to have a little bit better drying time and may have a slight advantage on noise, but the Bosch series is considered by technicians to be far more reliable. But the key again is the 800 series. The 100 and 300 series have different UIs and wash motors in them that aren't quite as good. So if you're going a little bit cheaper, you may be favoring the KitchenAid or some other brands that we're going to get to in a second. Another high-end choice is anything from Miele, either in the 5 or 7 series. They've always been the most reliable dishwasher in the US, and they come from the European capital of dishwashing, which is Germany. Next, even though I said they're made a little bit differently, not quite as good as the 800 series, Bosch 100 series is a really good choice for a cheaper end model. And when I say cheaper, you're still going to be spending between $600 and $800 typically on a Bosch 100 series. But technicians still like those quite a bit as well. And they have a lot of good features that tend to be better than the other choices on the market in that $600 to $800 range. Other good choices include Whirlpool's WDT750, which is the higher end of Whirlpool models with its metal tubs. And you may be surprised that I would also suggest the LG LDP S67, which is a highly rated choice around $799. Another tactic to consider on dishwashers is simply finding a good, expensive one that's either open box, scratch and dent, or on sale. Recently, one such model was the Maytag MDB49. I was able to find it online for about $580 up to about $620 on sale from a few different retailers. That unit tends to be on MSRP around $1,000. And the secret is that Maytag is going to perform similarly to a KitchenAid at a much lower price tag because of the fact that Maytag's now owned by Whirlpool, which owns KitchenAid as well. So if you can find something that is marked down or on sale, you definitely want to consider that. If it has that steel tub and has the features that you want, it's going to perform better than a better name brand. Now, in the lower end categories, if you say only have $300 to $500, there aren't a lot of great choices. But one brand, one style that isn't half bad are the LGs. The LG LDFC2423V, it's one of the few dishwashers actually out on the market that's available that's under $500 that has a stainless steel tub. Now, another brand that we haven't talked about yet that has a pretty good one is Frigidaire. The FFCD2413 is a plastic tub unit that they've been making the same way for decades now. The part quality isn't as good as what it used to be 20 years ago, but they're still pretty nice in the fact that they're so dead simplistic that they tend to work pretty well. But don't expect Bosch or KitchenAid type performance on a machine that at most runs $400. Now, another good one on the low end that I would also suggest is the Sam's Club Members Mark Ultra Paper Plates. These come in a bundle. I think it's like 200 of them for about $24. And this is the pinnacle of affordability when it comes to dishwashing. That is just to not wash at all. Now, for European models, I did the same kind of research that we have in the US. I looked at tens of thousands of customer reviews throughout the different stores in Europe, in the UK, France, Spain, a little bit in Germany. And the name brands that tend to be the most recommended in Europe, kind of close to what's in the US. Bosch and Siemens are on the top of the list. And of course, Siemens is made by Bosch, kind of like what KitchenAid is. Other highly recommended brands in Europe are Miele, Neff, and again, like Siemens, Miele is owned by Bosch as well. I think that's specifically their Spanish arm. And of course, one catch with the European markets is not every brand, not every make, not every model is available everywhere in Europe. So if I say, oh, hey, Neffs are good, they're not available, I think, everywhere in Europe. But Bosch, across the board, every country I looked at tends to be really, really high up there. So they're definitely one that is great. Miele as well. But again, you're going to be paying for some of those units well over €1,000 for the highest recommended models. And again, I'll have a list of those in the description at the end of the video. But in Europe, what brands are not recommended? I've told you that Bosch is typically good, but what about bad brands? The 5 worst brands that I looked at in Europe, and this again was generally across the board, the worst was Samsung, which was not surprising. But the other brands that were poorly recommended were Whirlpool, Electrolux, Indesit, and Essentielb, which I probably butchered that name. But those are the 5 worst brands. And if you look on the list over here, you're going to see what the review scores for those 5 brands are. And you'll see that they definitely don't match up on average to the top recommended brands in Europe. So if you can, and if you can afford it, stay away from those brands in general. But again, the more you spend on a particular dishwasher in Europe is like the US. The more you spend, the better they are. But now that we've talked about European brands and which are the best European brands, I've kind of left off the land of the free and the home of the Whopper. What are the top brands that you're going to find in the United States if you're just going to pick a brand? The top 5 brands in the US are KitchenAid, Bosch, Maytag, Whirlpool, and LG. And one important thing to note about that, 3 of those companies are all Whirlpool brands. So Whirlpool tends to make a very good product. And one caveat to those numbers is that KitchenAid was the highest because they only have the most expensive units. So that list has a bit of an asterisk mark because of how Maytag and KitchenAid tend to have a little bit more expensive models on the market. Now, what about bad brands in the United States? The 5 worst brands are Hotpoint, GE, Cafe, Samsung, and Frigidaire. And one thing to note, much like Whirlpool, GE owns 3 of those brands. Generally, GE does not make a good dishwasher, although the higher end GEs are actually pretty good. It's just that on average, they're crap. A very important part, though, of your dishwasher is maintaining it really well. Proper upkeep can keep it lasting much longer than if you don't follow these suggestions. First, let's see if your dishwasher, anyone that you look at, has a removable filter. If it does, make sure to take it out every few weeks and clean it in the sink. If food gets trapped on it, water is not going to be able to circulate during the dishwashing process. And this will end up leaving your plates, glasses, and anything else in there, well, they just aren't going to get very clean. Next, every month or 2, you want to make sure to run a cycle through your dishwashing machine and either put it in the rack for the utensils, or if there's any special pouch that you want to put a cleaner tablet in there like a Fresh. You could use home cleaners like baking soda, citric acid, or our washing machine cleaner, Wash Bomb. We sell that and use that in our machines, and it works really well. But the key is making sure to run a hot water wash with absolutely no dishes in the machine whatsoever. The cleaners are going to remove the buildup in the areas that you can't see, preventing pumps and hoses from getting built up with a lot of garbage and junk. Now, another useful trick is to remove the lower spray arm on your unit. And you want to clean it about every 6 months. Most of these, as you'll be surprised, are actually removable. And if you don't clean it off, mineral buildup can get in it and prevent it from spraying water properly onto your dishes, which will degrade the cleaning performance of your dishwashing machine. Finally, one last thing is that most new dishwashers will have a control board in them or a user interface. One thing that I would consider is some sort of surge protector. I know you're around water, so you have to be very careful on what you purchase, but either an outlet mounted one or one that is direct wired in line with the unit. Power surges or fluctuations are major scourges to modern electronics, and when it comes to appliances, this is no different. A new board on, say, a Bosch dishwasher will cost nearly as much as a brand new washing machine itself. So a surge protector tends to be a very cheap way to prevent a costly problem. Now, when it comes to reliability, I asked about quite a few technicians about what the most reliable brand was, and I ended up getting more responses about dishwashing machines than any other appliance survey I've ever done when we did this for fridges or washers and dryers. Here are a few of the comments that they had, but overall, here is the list of what they wanted to recommend as being the most reliable or best dishwashing brands on the market. Bosch was a clear first place leader by all of the techs and multiple groups that I polled. Nearly double the responders preferred Bosch over Whirlpool, KitchenAid, or Maytag. And unlike the brand surveys, I combined all 3 of those names into one result. Many techs noted, though, that Bosch dishwashers of today, they're not as reliable as Bosch was 10, 15, 20 years ago, but they are still much better than the other brands that are available on the market in the United States, at least. In second place, they did say that the Whirlpool line held a sizable advantage over anything else in the US market in terms of reliability. Now, at this point, I'm probably going to get a lot of comments of people typing out right now why Miele is ranked 5th on the list. Miele is always considered to be a really, really reliable brand. And the reason that it's ranked 5th on the technician list is that most of the people that responded to this were American technicians. And the thing is about Miele in the United States is it's just not a popular brand to buy or service. And that is a concern about Miele. They are more reliable probably than Bosch are. But the one catch is if you do have an issue with one, you have to have a technician nearby that can actually service and fix the dishwasher. And at least in the United States, for Miele, it's not easy to get service. But if you have a local shop that does sell and service Miele, it is a fantastic choice to make. In that same vein, if you have other brands like Fisher and Paykel, they could be very decent choices for wherever you are in the US or Europe. But you have to find someone that's actually going to fix it if it breaks down. And that's especially the case for F&P, which is a really, really good brand that I like, but I never talk about them because no one fixes them where I'm at. Next, let's talk a little bit about portable and countertop dishwashers a little bit. I'm not sure about where you live, but where I live, I get a ton of requests for portable or countertop dishwashers, actually more than I do for built-in models. That said, though, the sad thing is that if you're in the US, your choices on those type of dishwashers is really, really bad. Most places only carry 4 or 5 models if you are lucky. If you can afford it, the best unit on the market right now is probably the Whirlpool WDP 370. You're going to end up paying a lot more money for that portable dishwasher, and it's louder than a traditional built-in, comparably priced dishwasher. Also, it has a plastic tub despite the fact that it retails for nearly $8,000. But they work really, really well. If you have to get a cheap portable dishwasher, well, I would just go with whatever GE or Frigidaire is available in your local market that is within your budget. Honestly, I would avoid other brands like Dandy, RCA, SPT, and such, because a lot of them are going to be simply private labeled units from one central factory. And the thing is, when it comes to the weird off-brand named portable dishwashers, if something breaks down, it's going to be nearly impossible to find the parts if they break. At least if you buy a GE, despite the fact the review scores aren't great, the parts are at least available. So if something happens, it's going to break. Now, if it comes to sedanity, chances are you're screwed. Now, for countertop dishwashers like this one, again, the choices tend to be even worse going simply on these countertop styles. No traditional company makes them in at least the United States. And this was one very frustrating thing when it comes to the United States. But if you're in the metric side of the Atlantic Ocean, you have so many better choices for countertop machines. Bosch makes multiple fantastic options in Europe that you just simply can't get in the US. Usually in the United States, you end up searching for countertop units, and they have name brands that, like, my toddler would haphazardly bash on my keyboard on my computer in a desperate bid to find Cocomelon. Given the few choices on the market for the countertop ones in the US, again, I won't go with Dandy. The only brand that I could think about possibly recommending would be Farberware. But even then, I suspect it's going to be a similar factory, maybe as a Dandy. You're just going to pay a little bit more money, probably for a little bit better build tolerances, and of course, customer service, which will matter quite a bit, which I think will make it a little bit more superior than the randomly named ones on Amazon. Well, in the end, what am I actually going to get for my house? Well, when I was getting footage to do this video, looking at various dishwashers from some of the big box stores, I actually found like a super good deal on a Bosch 800 series. It was half off retail because it was a scratch and dent model that had a slight damage on the door gasket, which I can easily fix. I think I'm going to go with that one unless I can find another model on a considerable discount. Also, always remember when major appliance sales tend to happen. Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, and then finally Black Friday are great times of the year to purchase a dishwasher. Sometimes you can save hundreds of dollars.
Who are you and why are you in my house? Get out!
Oh, guys, I guess that when I told you that I bought a house, I forgot to tell you it may not have been this house. Better go. See ya.